Hey guys, what is going on? Sharp Thinking here. I have a long time coming video. This is going to be my final video about the Reeve Umnumzaan. It's a knife that initially I wasn't super impressed with upon taking it out of the box, but I think the trend I have with Reeve, and I have a few Sabenzas, is I open them and until I use them, I don't like them that much. But, I mean, this was my first Reeve. Now I own 3, hopefully another one of these guys soon. I do have 2 Sabenzas, though. Yeah, wow. So reason why this video took me so long is because it's super similar to a Sabenza, even in terms of size. Here's a CF Sabenza. So you can see that. Let's just start off with a size comparison, actually. So there you can see it next to a Sabenza. What else do you guys have? Here is an XM18. So again, not too far off. Very similar. Let's see. Here is a SNG. So kind of in the ballpark of like the big 3. The Sabenza already is. And this is, of course, like I said, almost the same size as the Sabenza. Wow, I'm going to use the other SOCOM because that one is way too bright. That one's still kind of bright. So it is smaller than a SOCOM. I think the SOCOM and the Umnumzaan actually have quite a bit in common. Handle size aside, they almost have the identical blade length, or not blade length, I'm sorry, cutting edge is near identical. The Umnumzaan does have a little bit less, but not by much. And then let's do a few more. A lot of guys have these. It's a little bit less expensive of a knife. Not a very good size comparison. So we'll do the Anthem. Not too far off. And then the LUDT, which has become one of my favorite knives. So you can see, it's not a huge knife. It's not a small knife either. I would say it's a little bit above average. It's got like a 3.68 inch blade or 3.7 inch blade. Good size knife. Definitely, I don't feel underbladed. Actually, I hardly ever feel like I don't have enough edge to get my EDC test done. But yeah, let's get into it. So we have a lot of good things going on with this knife, and I'm just gonna go come out and say it. I prefer the Umnumzaan to the Reeve Sabenza. I am gonna try to pick up another one of these, hopefully a Wilson Combat pattern handle. So yeah, let's start with the blade. First thing I like about this blade is it is a deep hollow grind. So one benefit of that a knife such as, let's just use a Strider as an example, does not have is as I sharpen up through this blade, it doesn't get thicker until you hit a certain point, probably about where the tip of my thumb is. I'd say it would probably start thickening up around there. Of course, that's a little bit different as you get towards the tip. The blade stock would, of course, thicken as you get to the tip a little bit quicker. Whereas with the Strider, every time you sharpen it, that blade gets a little bit thicker behind the edge. Now, it's super thin from the factory. I'd say a little bit thinner than this guy. But if you have this knife for 10 years and you're using it quite a bit, that would change. Not quickly, but I wouldn't say slowly either. I mean, I'd say it would at least take several years. But yeah, moving on. Perfect blade shape, perfect amount of belly, nice flat spot. Let's talk about the harpoon. The harpoon doesn't really do anything for me. In fact, I don't wish it wasn't there because I think that would look weird. But I guess you could say I'm indifferent towards the harpoon. This nice little groove right here, your thumb fits perfectly in there. So if you're whittling or doing some harder cutting and you need a little bit more leverage, it's a great spot to put your thumb. What else was I going to say? It does have blade stops, no stop pin. It's actually just a pivot and one handle screw, which is pretty cool. Pretty simplistic, which Chris Reeve is known for, obviously. And then I wanted to talk about the steel real quick. This is the best S35VN I've ever used. And one of my Sabenzas, I don't use this Sabenza. It's like a backup. But this Sabenza has had the same performance. Now, that's even in comparison to something like a Hinderer. This one is an S35VN. This is Gen 4. Now, the Hinderer, for a little bit, was the best I had tested. But this, it's so well heat treated, it almost doesn't feel like S35VN. It sharpens up a lot easier than many knives I've sharpened in S35VN. And it gets like a very sticky edge, which is always a good sign. Yeah, so I think that just about wraps up the blade. This is another weird thing I've come to kind of like about this knife. 3.68 inches or 3.7 inches sounds like a big blade, like if you're just thinking about it. But with this, I don't know if that even makes sense. If it makes sense, let me know. If not, tell me I'm retarded in the comments. The way this knife's handle is set up, you get a very advanced grip on the knife. So you grip very high up, like almost above the pivot. So you can see the choil is in line with the pivot, or this finger groove. And you get a very choked up grip. So that gives you a lot of leverage. Also, when you're holding the knife, it's a 3.7 inch blade, but it feels like a 3.25 inch blade. It really doesn't feel like a lot. When you take a knife like this LUDT and you grip it where, you know, the finger groove is, this knife feels a lot bigger because you have all that handle sticking out. And then, of course, you have all that blade, which, not my favorite thing in the world. I love this. I just feel like there's so many benefits. I'd say that this is a better tactic than what Chris Reeve does here with this finger choil. I don't mind finger choils. They have a lot of negatives. They have a lot of positives, in my opinion. But I just feel like I get all the control I need out of this, and I don't lose really any of the cutting edge. You can see this loses like half an inch of cutting edge. And also, when you're cutting cardboard choke back, this is a prime area to get choked up on, in terms of like cardboard just bunching up in that little spot right there. Not a huge deal, but I do like it a lot. Moving on to the handle. Something that it took me a while to get used to with this knife was how you grip it. So traditionally what I'm used to, in terms of when I hold a knife, is if there are grooves, like finger grooves on a knife, you just hold it where the finger grooves are. Sounds pretty simple. However, with this knife, there's a big cutout right here. Now, when I first got the knife, I thought you were supposed to hold it in this grip. That's not the case. This cutout actually is... There's a couple reasons why I think they did it. One is because this knife is not very intuitive to deploy. I have it down to kind of a science. However, when you first get the knife, if you've never handled one, I would be shocked if somebody just picked this knife up for the first time and got a solid deployment out of it. I actually gave it to a buddy. I was in Maryland the other day. He's not really a knife guy, but he carries a knife. And I gave it to him to open, and he spent a full day trying to figure it out. He was pushing down on the lock bar, trying to push the blade out. just kind of like pushing it this way. The trick with this, just push up. So that's the first reason why I think they put this big ol' little cutout here. Also, for a knife that's so hard to deploy when you first get it, it's very easy to operate with gloves on. This nice tab that sticks out does not interfere with ergonomics at all. I've held the knife in a ton of grips. Well, not a ton of grips, but I've, what am I trying to say here? I've used the knife a lot in various grips, and it doesn't really interfere that much. And in this grip especially, which I think is the most comfortable, where your hand just kind of lands like that. I think that's the best way to grip this knife. That tab does not interfere at all. Rather, what it does is it makes the knife very easy to manipulate with gloves on. What else? Let's see here. Let's talk about the hardware. So Chris Reeve does, I want to say it's all done in-house. I could be wrong. Let me see if I have a magnet here. I know the Sabinza does not have magnetic hardware, so it's definitely titanium. Doesn't look like I have a magnet anywhere here, but the hardware on this is incredible. This Umnumzaan, it's an older Umnumzaan, has a better action in terms of drop shot than either one of my Sabinzas. Maybe because this one's new, but this one's also broken in, and it doesn't have really a drop shot action at all. Now, those of you guys that watch my channel a lot, you know, I really couldn't care less about a drop shot action. I just thought I'd bring it up because people seem to think that the Sabinza is so much smoother than the Umnumzaan. I would have to disagree with that. Big old pivot. Very easy to use. It does not have a bushing system, so it's not like the Sabinza where you just tighten the thing down and leave it, and that's how it stays. This one you can tighten down all the way, no issues. This you do have to Loctite. I have this Loctited. I'm not going to undo it. I have the action pretty much perfect. Even when the pivot is a little loose, there is zero side to side. Like, absolutely none. So it has huge PB washers, or phosphorus bronze. I would consider that to be a positive. I hope Chris Reeve does not ever put bearings in their knives. That would tear me apart inside, for sure. Let's see. What was I talking about? Oh, let's talk about lockup. So what this knife has is, it's called a ceramic detent interface. What that is it's basically, there's a detent ball. How do I explain this? Fit right into the corner of the lock bar. So imagine, let me see if I can find, here, we'll just use a Sharpie. So imagine a detent ball put right here. All right. Put right where that Sharpie is, except dead center in the middle of the lock bar. Now, this will act as not only your detent, you can see the detent hole right here. You can kind of see a little bit of it. It is a big detent hole. It's drilled all the way through the blade, so no gunk or anything is going to get in there. No issues, never had any with the detent not working. The knife retains incredibly well. It's actually one of the best retaining knives I have. I mean, really, there's not many knives that retain as well as this Umnumzaan. It also acts as almost like a steel lock insert sort of deal. However, it's ceramic. So these knives do lock up late. If you get one that locks up super late, don't worry about it. This one is later than the majority of Umnumzaans. This knife has been used, abused. It's old. I could send it in to get it fixed. It's got no play. I don't really need to. So one unique thing, and I'll say unique because it truly is unique. It's not meant to be a negative thing, is the ceramic detent actually wears a little groove in the blade. So it's a little bit, it's almost like an inverse of a titanium frame lock, where instead of you have the blade wearing out the lock, it's actually the lock wearing out the blade. So never had the knife fail, no issues out of that. I think it's cool. I know that the Sebenza 31 is going to be utilizing that. Also, the Sebenza 31 is not going to have a bushing pivot. So a lot of similarities. I can tell you off the bat, if given the option between a Sebenza 31 and an Umnumzaan, well, no. I can't even speculate. If it were the same ergos as a 21 with Umnumzaan, like the pivot and the ceramic detent, I'd take the Umnumzaan every day. However, I'm not sure that the 31 has Sebenza 21 ergonomics, so I revoke that. Nice weight to it. It does have some pretty fat titanium handles. A lot of people will look at this knife and say, I think these are about 450 bucks. And they'll just look at it. They'll say S35VN and titanium. This knife is a ripoff. I can get a Kaiser, whatever. Kaiser, I can't even name a single Kaiser model. Yeah, that's true. You can get S35VN and titanium from a Kaiser. Absolutely. However, Kaiser, I can promise you, does not have the same warranty as Chris Reeve. This knife was sent in to Chris Reeve and restored to full factory, brand new condition. I know for a fact Kaiser's not doing that. Kaiser probably doesn't offer reblades. Kaiser doesn't offer a lot of things. This knife is serviceable for a lifetime. I mean, really. This is a knife that if you wanted to only have one knife, and this goes for any Chris Reeve, it's not exclusive to the Umnumzaan. You could buy one. That's all you need. I mean, maybe two, because if you send it to warranty to get fixed. Not that, and here's the thing. When I say fixed, I've never really heard of anybody sending a Chris Reeve product in to get fixed. I've heard of people doing like a spa treatment, which is what happened to this. I can tell you that this knife probably needs one. They will refinish the blade. This has some stains on it. Yeah, they refinish the blade, sandblast the lock scale. They do all that. Incredible. I can also tell you that you're not getting the fitment of a Chris Reeve. The finish, people say fit and finish. I would say the fit and finish, or the finish, I'm sorry. The fitment is incredible. These knives, if you've ever taken one apart, you know what I'm talking about. These knives are fit together like a Swiss-made, like, it's so ridiculous. Swiss-made watch comes to mind. I know that these are a little bit more simple than a Swiss-made watch. I realize that. It might not be the best comparison, but I think the tolerances and the build quality of these Chris Reeve knives are levitating above even some companies in the big three. I don't want to name names or anything, but there's definitely some people that are pulling their weight in terms of build quality. Also, what was I about to say? Oh, so back to the finish being pretty standard. It's a stonewash blade and a bead blast handle. I don't have any of the custom graphic Sebenzas or Umnumzaans or anything like that, so I can't really speak to their like intricate finishing. I know that like a bead blast or a sand blast titanium, it's pretty simple to get that right. But the fit on these is just insane. I mean, it really is. You almost can't appreciate it unless you've worked your way up to the point of owning one of these. For instance, like you start with, you know, your Spydercos and whatnot. And I think if I owned this a few years ago, I would have not even understood what I had. I mean, really, just the fitment and build quality is so out of this world. It doesn't compare to anything I've handled so far. Even a lot of customs that I've handled. I handled plenty at the River's Edge Cutlery meetup. Anyway, getting back to the topic of the video. This knife also carries great in the pocket. It's not super fat. I can't stand a fat knife. It ruins carry for me. I love the Spyderco Manix, but I can't stand how thick it is in the pocket. It's something that just bugs the shit out of me. It's bumping up against my phone, cracking my screen. I know that's a user error, but there are knives that are thinner in the pocket, so I mean, it kind of is a buyer choice if you want to carry a fat knife or a thinner knife. Getting back to pocket carry, the clip, incredible. I love the Chris Reeve clips. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the SOCOM clip, although I know Chris Reeve was doing it first. I realize that. But the secondary retention is honestly really great. I wish more clips had it. It carries pretty deep in the pocket. It's not super deep. I mean, it's not like half the knife is sticking out of the pocket. Does come with the lanyard. I took it off. Don't like it. They do make fillers for the lanyard. I don't really care enough to get one. However, if you want one, they are available. One thing here, the knife does function without these rubber, what would you call that? Like a grommet? Is that the right word? Or rubber little bands. They just kind of quiet the knife so it can be opened almost silently. I think that's why they put them on. To be honest, I really don't know why they put them on there. Didn't look too deep into it. Doesn't really affect use or anything like that. Let's see here. Oh, ergos. One thing I left out is straight back handle. Love that. That's perfect. It puts all the force right on the outside of your palms. It's incredible. You can put a lot of force down on this knife, especially in this grip, or in this just hammer grip. You can put a lot of force down, and I mean, you guys know I love my hinderers. Some of these guys can be a little much. They'll put a lot of force right in the center of your palm, and it sucks. I know a lot of Spydercos are like that. It's not a problem with this knife. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, overall, I mean, it is an expensive knife. I'm not gonna lie. It's up there. 450 bucks is not cheap. Certainly not. That's a used Glock in most places of the world, or in the US. But I feel like this knife, for the money, offers more than other knives that are $450. This, I think, for $35. And then if you look at a standard hinderer, pretend this is a Gen 6, because that's the newest model. Actually, this is a Gen 6. What am I talking about? In terms of raw performance, I think that... Okay, all of these knives offer different things, and I know I'm digging myself in a ditch right now. If I was going to pick one of these knives purely just to use, not to play with, not because I love this knife. They're made in Ohio. I live in Ohio. I love things that are made in Ohio, right? That's part of the reason why I love Hinderer. I'd pick this over these two for use every day. I think they're just, it's a better EDC knife, objectively speaking. Now, I love the Hinderer just because I like it. I like the Strider. I think it's a badass looking knife. There's a ton of shit I don't like about the Strider, SNG or SMF. But I think the SNG is a little bit better than the SMF, just to be fair. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. Of course it is. I don't want to downplay it like it's not. Oh, $450, whatever. However, this knife, the Benchmade Anthem, $425. This knife makes this. I mean, this knife is so much better than this knife. If given the option, I would pick this every time. Now, I love this knife. I still love it. It's got a place in my heart. However, I'm talking about strictly just use. Like if you DM me on Instagram, hey, I'm looking for just a hard use knife. You know, I don't want to have to worry about ruining the finish. And you can see I scratched the blade. I forget what I was cutting. It may have been sandpaper or where is it? It's like right. Really? Now you can't even see it. It's like right in this area. It's very faint scratching. But yeah, I mean, you can get the knife refinished for like 20 bucks. So I think it has a lot to offer. I don't want to ramble too long. Oh, one thing I did want to touch on. This knife is, people will say all the time, I like Chris Reeve, but I think I'm going to go Hinderer Strider because I want something that's a little more hard use. I think this is every bit as much of a hard use knife as anything. I mean, I'd put this, like I said in the beginning of the video, I'd put this in the same category as a SOCOM. They remind me a lot of each other. They're both, I mean, they have a lot of things in common in terms of like construction. Big pivot. They have thumb stops, a ton of torsional rigidity provided from those. Just, I mean, very similar cutting edge, like I said. I feel like you're almost getting a compact SOCOM with a little bit nicer materials. Just a heads up, I have done cut tests with this SOCOM. This S35EN will outcut M390 from Microtech, at least in this knife. I am going to be doing my LUDT in M390, this guy, and I'll get back to you guys with that. But for people that complain about, one, the knife not being hard use, I encourage you to pick one up. It's actually got a pretty decent stock thickness. It's not like Hinderer stock thickness. And then this Strider actually has an SMF blade stock, so it's a fatty. But yeah, it's not like cock thick blade stock or anything, but in terms of practical hard use, I'd say that this reigns king. And yeah, S35EN, people will complain about it and they'll bitch and they'll moan, but it boils down to heat treat. I know that people are sick of hearing about it. I realize that. However, it can't be ignored. It's a real thing. I know Apostle P doesn't like it, but that's just the reality of it. It does matter. Otherwise, this knife would not be outcutting M390. It wouldn't be outcutting, I mean, LMAX. You know what I mean? You name it. I would say that this cuts better than Hinderer's 20CV. I really think so. I feel like it's more balanced steel. One thing I love about this, I don't know if I mentioned it, it's a sterile blade. very nice looking blade. Definitely new. I wish I had a second one. I actually held off on doing this video because I wanted to get two, like I do for most of my videos, but just new. These knives are very stunning, especially the Wilson Combat. I think it's just such a beautiful, beautiful knife. Like I said, it is a little bit more tactical looking, if you can call it that, with this harpoon. However, again, I just want to reiterate, I'd take this every day over Sebenza. I mean, I don't know if... I fail to see a good argument as to why the Sebenza is a better knife than the Umnumzaan. From my perspective, which is that of just a knife user, I can appreciate the shit out of a high quality knife. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought all of these. I would have stuck to the budget user knives. I fail to see where this knife does not reign supreme over the Sebenza. Maybe it'll be different with the 31. I don't know. But with that, I'm going to wrap this video up. Thank you all so much for watching. And I really do appreciate all the new subs. I've been gaining like 5 a day, it seems like. I get non-stop notifications. I guess I'll leave this guy here. But yeah, wow. Thank you guys so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video.